Adidas's Adios line is one of the most important running shoe lines in all of running, but for the past couple years it's felt very neglected and frankly left behind. However, with the Adios 8, I can honestly say that the Adios line is back as one of the key performance running shoes in Adidas's Adizero lineup. What do we actually have here? We have a dual Lightstrike 2, which we'll talk about in a bit, Lightstrike Pro in the forefoot midsole. We have a full rubber coverage in the forefoot with a new type of shank, torsion shank in the, I guess you would call it even outsole. We will also talk about this in a bit. We have 28 mil of foam in the heel, 20 in the forefoot, gives you an 8 mil drop, which for a shoe in 2023 makes this extremely minimalist, extremely small, but it all works. It's great. Now the shoe is 7.2 ounces or 205 grams, which makes it a little bit heavier than you would expect. In fact, when you pick up this shoe, you're going to feel that the shoe sort of balances this way. I think that has to do with this big piece of rubber on the forefoot, which is great. We'll get to the outsole. But this shoe, while not heavy, and it doesn't run heavy, it does not feel heavy on the foot, it is a little bit heavier than you would expect it to be, especially when shoes like the Nike Streakfly, the Adidas Takumi Sen, and a Vaporfly all range between 6 ounces and 6.5 ounces. This shoe, again, at 7.2 ounces, it's a little heavier than you would think. But again, I think that speaks to the build quality of the shoe, but also the durability that's built into the shoe. Now, one thing that I think Adidas has done really well with this shoe that's really updated it is the last that this shoe's built on, which is really the mold, the form that they designed the shoe around, is very similar to what's available in this shoe, in the Adios Pro 3, meaning it has a very wide forefoot. Now, we're not talking ultra wide, but we're talking wide for an Adidas shoe, and it's not long. So this is that weird Adidas shoe that is neither long nor narrow. And I think that actually works really well. And again, it's very similar to this shoe where it's not too long and it's actually got a very generous forefoot. And I think that actually works really well because this shoe fits me true to size. I am a size 9. When I first put my foot into this shoe, I had absolutely no issues. It fits extremely well. I didn't have to try another size. I didn't wonder if I had the wrong size. I had ample toe room. The volume in the forefoot is really good. This shoe fits really well, really true to size. So all of those problems that a lot of people have with Adidas shoes of it's too long, it's too narrow, I'm not getting that in this shoe at all. Let's start with the upper on the shoe, and thank God Adidas can design a good upper, and this upper is a great upper. After the nightmare that was this upper with just all of the issues with this, I have a video all on the problems with this upper. There'll be a card on the screen, link in the description. After that shoe, I was really concerned of Adidas's uppers moving forward. Yes, the Takumi Sen 9 upper is decent, but it is a little narrow. That shoe fits a little long. It's a little strange. This upper is all of the same materials, but not only have they gotten rid of all sort of the pinch points, and like I said, there's a generous forefoot in here and there's generous toe volume, but all of those insane overlays that Adidas has been liking in their uppers over the past couple years, especially in the Adios 6 and 7, which had all this weird suede material all over it, it's all gone from this shoe. This is a very streamlined, very open, very lightweight, very good upper. No pain, no pinching. In general, I'm happy to see this upper on this shoe. Overall fit of this shoe is generous. It's not a race fit, but it's not sloppy either. There isn't, for me at least, a lot of extra material, but it is roomy enough where my toes can splay and my foot can move around. It's actually really nice. It does have that same sort of feel as the Adios Pro 3 in that it's got a wide forefoot and a narrow heel. The midfoot lockdown is very well done in this shoe. There's nothing from the lace loops that's mechanical. There's none of the sort of this stuff that they put on the Adios Pro 3. It's all very sort of streamlined, but it works really well. The tongue is not a gusseted tongue, but it is a banded tongue. So this is that same sort of felty-like material that's on the Adios Pro 3, but now it has a backing material on it that's really smooth, and it has some elastic bands on both sides that wrap around and under the foot, which give you a really good midfoot lockdown. Like I said, the heel is very narrow, and the heel counter is actually very minimal. I would consider this a race heel counter, but it works really well. And again, the heel's very narrow. One surprise is there isn't a lot of padding in here. This still has that sort of pad, open gap pad that Adidas seems to really, that is what they want. But the padding here is not as generous as on the Adios Pro 3, for example. And I can see some people having some issue with heel lockdown in this shoe. I didn't really have any issues. I do generally use all of the lace loops. I don't do a runner's knot, but I actually loop back out. So I'm using all the lace loops. So lockdown wasn't really an issue for me. But like I said, because there isn't a lot of padding back here and it is such a minimal heel counter, I could see people, some foot shapes having some issue back there in the upper. But overall, the upper is just simple, does the job, great lockdown, lots of room in here, and overall really well done. Let's talk about the midsole now. Now the midsole is really a tale of sort of two different worlds. We have this lighter colored foam, which is Lightstrike 2. This is not old Lightstrike. This is Lightstrike 2. And then this creamier color is Lightstrike Pro in the forefoot. Now, one of the big changes with this shoe over the Adios 6 and 7 is that this piece of Lightstrike Pro is now full midfoot. There's no rails of Lightstrike foam around it. There's no sort of just little pucks sitting in Lightstrike foam. It is pure 100% Lightstrike Pro foam in the forefoot of the shoe, from lateral to medial, all of it. There's nothing else in the forefoot as far as foam. And that makes all of the difference, because the Adios 6 and 7 did have Lightstrike Pro sort of running on the rails, the medial and lateral the rails of the foot up into the toe. And anytime you have Lightstrike foam around Lightstrike Pro, it completely deadens Lightstrike Pro. And that was one of the many problems in the Adios 6 and 7. It's not here in this shoe. This is pure Lightstrike Pro foam in the forefoot, and it is beautiful. Now, as I said, this foam is Lightstrike 2 foam. This is their new Lightstrike foam. It is considerably softer, considerably more flexible, and very lightweight. It's actually kind of shocking how much lighter and more flexible it is from Lightstrike. To the point where when this shoe is on foot, and especially when you're running on it, and again, I'm a midfoot, forefoot striker, so I'm up on the front of my foot, this foam essentially disappears. It's not even there anymore, which is fine for me, again, because I'm landing up here and I'm on this beautiful Lightstrike Pro foam. But if I was a heel striker, this foam is so soft and so flexible. When I was kind of testing the shoe out in heel striking, I felt like I was bottoming out every foot strike. Not probably the best shoe for heel strikers, which is a little bit of a letdown, because the midsole of the Adios series typically has a really great heel for heel striking. I would say if you have run in an Adios before and you're a heavy heel striker and you have had issues, or maybe you've not had issues, think about this shoe and try it on in the store first, because I think given how light this foam is, Lightstrike 2 foam is, you may have some issues with this shoe. Let's talk about the outsole of the shoe now. So one of the best parts of this redesign is this outsole. You can see that they take a lot of influence from the Adios Pro 3 with this big piece of rubber in the forefoot that extends way down the lateral side to give you a ton of coverage up here. The heel pads in this are not Continental rubber. This is, I believe, Adidas has a product name for this rubber, but it's not as durable as what's up here, nor is it as thick as what's up here. But this piece, this single piece of rubber that's in the forefoot and kind of goes into the midfoot of the shoe is amazing. Amazing grip, amazing feel for how thick it is. And it sort of worked everywhere. I've run on this on asphalt, concrete, wet, dry, some dirt, some packed dirt, very light gravel, concrete block or brick even. And this has worked really well. I mean, it's the Continental outsole. We know it's going to work well, and it works exceptionally well here. But I think the redesign of this big piece of rubber from, having strategic different pads like you see on the Takumi San or the older Adios 6 and 7, I think this adds a lot to the feel of this shoe because, again, you have this huge platform up in the mid and forefoot of this shoe that make it really beautiful to land on. And I think are going to increase durability of this shoe significantly. I feel like this shoe is going to be extremely durable and get a ton of miles in it. Now, the other big change with the outsole or midsole, or just how this shoe is this pink shank. Now, Adidas has always had torsion shanks in their shoes, meaning it's anchored in the heel, big piece of material, and this is a plastic material. It's a TPU or PVAX material. It's not carbon at all. And then it runs into the lateral and medial sides of the foot, so you get support on landing and you get a lot of sort of pop on toe off. What's new in this shoe is we now have a center rail up the middle of the shoe, which Adidas has never done. It's always sort of been a spider from the medial lateral sides through the midfoot and then back up to the medial lateral sides. It's never been anything in the middle of this shoe. And what I can say is that this shank now, the closest thing I can think of to compare how that feels in the shoe, because you do feel it, is it's a lot like a spike plate in a track shoe. Now, this is not a track shoe, and this isn't a full piece of coverage spike plate because there's no spikes in this shoe. But the difference in the way this feels when you run in it is that a carbon plate or carbon rods in Adidas, they're encased in the midsole. So they feel like they're part of the midsole. Sometimes they can be closer to your foot, sometimes they be closer to the ground, but they feel like they're part of the midsole. Whereas a spike plate on a track shoe feels like it's under the midsole. Kind of on the outsole, it's kind of like you're running directly on it, and it feels much more direct and connected to the ground. It gives you a lot more sort of snap off the ground. And I will say that this feels a lot like that because this is a fairly substantial shank. And on the lateral and medial sides of it, you definitely feel it. And I will say you feel it in the middle and you will hear it because this shoe does make a very unique sound when you're running in it. I wouldn't necessarily call it slappy, but it does make sort of a very unique noise that I think has to do with this big pad of rubber with all of this sort of shank in the forefoot. I think overall it works really well because running in this shoe is wonderful. It is light. Like I said, it's 7.2 ounces, so it's not the lightest shoe out there, but when you're running in this shoe, because it is so thin compared to what we're used to running in 2023, this shoe feels very light. It feels very nimble, but it feels very wide. You feel the width in the forefoot, and it works really well. I've complained a lot about sort of wide or bulky shoes. This shoe does not feel bulky, but it feels like there's some width here. So when you're landing, you can actually feel your foot sort of splay out, your toes splay out. It's not a barefoot shoe. It's not even an ultra or something with a natural shaped toe box, but you get sort of that engagement with your toes. You can feel them sort of move out. You can feel them engage. It feels great. And this torsion shank, when you're running on it, you're landing on it, you're getting this very pop sensation when you're toe offing because now the shank does come into the toe. It kind of wraps around. You can see that from the exploded view. So you're getting a lot of support on the lateral side through the middle and now on the toe off on the medial side. And the pop feels very direct. It's not as harsh as carbon. There still is some flex here. It's much more flexible than rods or a carbon plate. But this shank really is doing something now, and you really do feel it when you're running in it, and it works really well. I also think that's why there is such a big piece of rubber in here, because I think it smooths out this forefoot shank quite a bit because there is a lot of shank. But I think the way it all works together with the big piece of pure Lightstrike Pro, that shank, and then this beautiful outsole, I think it just all works very positively together to give you a very good mid forefoot landing and a very clean toe off. How am I going to be using this shoe moving forward? Well, this is a first impressions video. I only have 3 runs in this, about 25K. I've gone through the paces from threshold pace, marathon pace, easy running, sort of done everything in it to get my initial impression, and it's impressed me significantly. I'm going to put it through some workouts. I'm going to do a lot more easy running in it, and I will do some longer sort of 3 to 5K efforts in this. But what I can say right now is I am very excited about where this shoe could fit in my lineup, somewhere between a daily trainer and a workout shoe. We'll see. Again, that will evolve. But this shoe, I think, brings in another question, since there is now a direct relationship between these 2 shoes as far as how they feel on the foot, especially the last of the shoe. Again, the wide forefoot, the narrow heel, a little bit of toe spring that goes with the extreme toe spring of the Adios Pro. These 2 shoes really feel like training partners now. This shoe now feels like it is the trainer to this shoe, which brings into question, what is the relationship between this and the Takumi Sen? That's something I'm going to spend some time to try to figure out, but I will say right now my initial impressions is that this replaces the Takumi Sen for me for almost every purpose I could think of. So there you go. My thoughts on the Adidas Adios 8. As I said, I plan to spend a lot more time in this shoe. I'm actually kind of blown away by how much I'm enjoying it. I expected to like it, but I didn't expect to like it this much. So in the comments below, let me know if you're excited about the Adios 8. Have you run in the Adios 8? Are you a longtime Adios fan? Always let me know all of that stuff. I love the conversation in the comments. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you're new here, subscribe. You'll see more content like this pop up in your feed. If not, drop a like on this video because it helps this content get seen by more people and this channel continue to grow, which I will always be thankful for. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.